Okay, so hi everyone. We just watched the PoE 2 announcement for patch 0.2. I have some notes here that I will go through just to kind of sum it all up. There was like a 30-minute, prepared presentation, and then there was like a 2-hour Q&A with CGD and the lead devs. There was a lot of really interesting info in there, and overall the update looks amazing. So the patch is called the Dawn of the Hunt. It comes next week on 4th of April. And there's a lot of stuff to unpack here. But overall, I think they're really moving the game in the right direction. At least previously, it seemed like there was like a lot of hype around the original launch. And then it kind of flattened out, and people got disinterested with just no big updates coming, and stale meta and economy problems and so on. Crafting wasn't really there. So there were definitely issues with the game, and overall there have been a lot of updates that will fix many of those problems, or at least make them a lot better. So on top of that, we also got a bunch of new content, like the Huntress is coming, not the Druid though, which they had previously said is supposed to be in that update, but apparently it's not ready. But it doesn't mean that it's a small update. They added in a lot of previously not mentioned stuff and surprises in there, and overall it's a very big patch. As you can see here, it's like some of the highlights from like the overview. For example, 100 new support gems, 100 new unique items with a big focus on endgame items as well. There's like a new mechanic, the Wisps here, which is a bit like the Tormented Spirits, for example, in Path of Exile 1. Lots of new maps, lots of new stuff. Endgame is reworked, crafting is reworked, and it looks like it's going to be really fun. I think this patch is going to be pretty massive and a big turnaround. Now, it doesn't really solve the entire, host of issues that the game has. Obviously, this is just patch 0.2 and not 1.0, for example. And with the way it's going, I also think that the end of early access is very far away. So let's just say that. I don't think they're going to finish this game in 2025, as they had previously said, 6 to 12 months, which would mean the end of the year would be the latest, and I don't think that's happening. But this doesn't really mean that the game is not going to be in a good state. There will be an economy reset. So with the launch, there is the kind of like standard league, and then the new league. You can play the old characters, and you will be able to access all of the new stuff in the old league as well. But you will not be able to play together with people that have created a new character in the new league. So this is kind of like seasonal standard stuff, basically. So just keep that in mind. You have to start level 1 again if you want to play together with like all the people coming back, basically. But you can also do the old stuff here. That being said, there will be a lot of changes to existing builds, and they also said forget everything you know about how the game works, basically, especially when it comes to the builds. A lot of stuff will be nerfed into the ground, like all the OOP stuff, Temporalis, Double Heralds, you name it, is going to be nuked most likely. We don't have the patch notes yet, but they did say it's going to be a bit of like a nerf fest. This was literally their words. And this is absolutely expected, to be fair. They definitely want to bring down the top end power, and especially the easiness of getting to like ridiculous power levels. They said they want to still have like, ridiculous builds and whatever, but with the current games and the game systems, it was too easy to achieve that. So they want to like make sure that it is a bit of a longer journey, basically, to get to the point where you just destroy everything. But that should still be possible. Yeah, other than that, 25 new skills. These are mostly the hunter skills, which are the spear weapon skills, but there will also be like some others sprinkled in, like some spirit gems are coming, and maybe here and there some other things. Specters and companions, a new minion type, are coming. So minion players can rejoice here. Companions are like a new category of like a maximum 1. They said there's a keystone for up to 2 special type of enemies. For example, the Huntress has a skill where she can like revive enemies, and then they become like a companion, and they can buff you or like play with you or something like that. So you have an example here, like this Quadrilla ape here that you can revive, or the Roa, I think, is also one of these. So there's like some stuff like that. And Specters are like a revived, whatever minion, whatever enemy you choose, basically. So this is how that works. 100+ new support gems. There's some examples here. Lots of really cool stuff. So you can also check this out on the website here. I will link this in the description. 100 new uniques, I mentioned that. Now for the Huntress. What you need to know, it's kind of like a fast, agile class. To me, this looks amazing. I'm very excited for this. I have been excited for Huntress ever since they previewed it, and now it's finally coming. So this might actually be my new main. It's a lot of like, you know, jumping back and forth, you know, with positioning and engaging, disengaging. There's actually a skill even called disengage, which is like one of the level 1 skills. So you're gonna have a lot of like this kind of combo potential, going in melee, going from range, and you kind of combine a lot of stuff together. There's also like ways to, like, for example, do multiple types of elemental attacks with like the same setup. They also have like a new kind of like shield skill, which is a parry. So you can actually like add some extra damage taken to enemies after parrying them. And it's not like the same as blocking. So there's like a functional difference basically with how that works. I don't know exactly, but it's going to be quite interesting. Roar Mount is not hunter specific or something, but it's like a very high dex cost spirit gem, but you can run around on a mount and then cast and like attack at full mount speed, walking speed, for example. It's kind of interesting. And yeah, lots of really cool stuff here. So Huntress looks very exciting. I think what they've shown in the preview was amazing. So I'm going to be cooking on that for sure. Now for crafting, there's lots of really good updates. Previously, people were very dissatisfied with how crafting works. I'm going to say playing basically hardcore SSF all the way. Yeah, that was pretty bad. And it seems like they're adding a lot more ways to actually get the items you want. They did highlight that they want to make sure that loot on the ground remains important and useful, so they don't want to, like, you know, make crazy crafting mechanics just yet, like in PoE 1, where, you know, you can only get this stuff through actual crafting methods and everything on the ground is useless. So they're kind of trying to be very careful here, but they are making things a lot better. One such change here is 1 omen is in every ritual. Now there can be omens that are not tied to crafting. There's like some that have like kind of like a gameplay impact. So they're generally not really that sought after, but this means that generally going to get a lot more of them. If you don't know, omens are those extra currencies you can use to change, for example, like an exalt will only add like a suffix or a null, or will only remove a suffix and these kind of things, which is very important for high-end crafting. Greater essences are going to be much more common and targetable, so there's like a new like unique map now as well, for example, that has many greater essences, and you can kind of choose which ones you want. You can corrupt them. There's like these new corrupted essences now, similar to like the PoE 1 essences. So greater essences can upgrade into those. Normal essences can upgrade into greater when you corrupt them. So that's like some stuff like that. There's like here these icons at least. Somewhere in this press kit there's also like some of the effects of what they have, I think. Or I think it's here on this site. So yeah, this looks pretty amazing at least. So it's like interesting new mods here. So for example, this one, the Essence of Horror with increased effect of stockables, and Essence of Insanity with you get 2 enchantments when you corrupt the item, regardless of if that corruption actually changes anything else, I think. Or maybe this is just like replacing the original corruption effect. But either way, lots of interesting stuff. And you see here, there's stuff like this, yeah, with like 4 greater essences and so on. So you're going to get a lot more of those, have a lot more like targeting of mods, for example. Fracturing orbs are coming. So if you don't know, fracturing orbs, they are also from PoE 1, where you can lock 1 modifier. I think they also have an example here. So basically you can use this on an item, and then this mod can never change. So if you have like a really high mod fractured, like here, like a high fizz roll, for example, you can then try to like use chaos orbs and whatever to, you know, dump some currency and maybe get a good outcome. So that is really exciting, and I'm also looking forward to that. So especially for like the chaos orb spam and these kind of things, that's going to be very big. So this is like another way. And then recombination. This is also a thing from PoE 1, where you can combine 2 items into one with like picking random mods from each. And this is also going to be another way of crafting your gear. Yeah, then we also have new socketables. So there's new types of runes. I'm not sure if that's here, but I can try to find this. But basically there's like new tiers of runes now. And there is also like talismans, they're called. So here we have some examples of these. So lots of new exciting choices, and they basically talked about this as the replacement for the crafting bench in the end. So effectively, this is supposed to kind of give you a lot of like options to add some interesting, you know, novel stats on your gear, similar to what a crafting bench in PoE 1 can do. And it's a little bit more out there in terms of like, you know, specialized stats. And you can see this here quite clearly, like the minions gain physical damage as extra lightning, or, you know, you have weapon has a chance to inflict lightning exposure. So these are all like kind of like very build specific, versus most mods that roll on gear, that is just like, you know, life, res, movement speed, whatever. That is like, you know, kind of like the more generic stuff. So they want to allow you more flexibility here. And then there's also the so-called talismans, which is going to come from new wisp mechanics. And there's also like really interesting stuff to get there. So that's pretty cool. Other than that, yeah, new ring and amulet type bases. I think we had like some screenshot of this as well somewhere. Here's a talisman as well. These are the other stockables that you can get. And they also have pretty interesting effects and can kind of like, you know, close like a gap in your build or something like that, as you can see here. And yeah, overall, lots more customization with the gear at least, and lots more chances to actually like make some interesting items. Now, I don't think that this whole like, you know, crafting upgrade here will really close the entire gaps that the game has right now. Especially, it depends on how rare and how common are these different encounters, how often do you get those essences, how often do you get the omens, and so on. They definitely have to make stuff a lot more common than it is right now in order for this to get anywhere. But overall, I think it's going to be quite exciting to see, and I think a lot of people will start engaging more with the crafting system. And they also said this is definitely something that will like iterate on and introduce more stuff. So they're maybe going to port more stuff from PoE 1, or maybe they're going to start introducing more stuff like, you know, the new stockables, or maybe some other crafting stuff. Now for Endgame, also big updates here, and they all look really good. One interesting change that they said in the Q&A, I think, maps cannot drop below the current tier, so you can just like move up and you don't run like tier 15s and find like tier 3 maps or something. That's really cool. Now, if you want to kind of keep some nodal maps around for your alts, or, you know, if you want to respec and whatnot, you guys have to like build a bit of like a pool. But overall, sustain and going to higher tiers is much easier. Also, for example, the endgame quest line is changed a little bit. You now don't have to do like 10 maps of tier 1 and 10 maps of tier 2 and so on, but you have to like kind of cleanse these corrupted maps. There's like a bit of like a storyline attached to this now. Looks like this here. So these are like these kind of like, I'm not sure what they're called, like hubs of corruption. And you go there and then you cleanse it. And then you go this like tier by tier. You have to find one of these things, and then you go to the next one, and then to the next one, and so on. So it's a bit like RNG where you find them and how fast you can progress with this, but we can basically kind of like go from this corruption hub to the next one, and then to the next one, and then kind of like move up in tiers like that. Like this, you progress the storyline and get your Atlas passive points. So it sounds a little bit more like, you know, integrated in the lore. Doriani is going to pop up and he's going to cleanse the stuff. And that is actually going to change the surrounding maps to then not be corrupted anymore, but cleansed, which actually changes what kind of monsters appear and what kind of rewards you can get. So you have the option to either choose to run corrupted maps or run cleansed maps, which both have their own purposes. So for example, like the cleansed maps, I think, drop the fracturing orbs that I described earlier, if I'm not mistaken. And so I think you can only get them there. And there might be like some other stuff they can only get from the corrupted maps. For example, some of the beyond bosses appear there and so on. So there's like basically specific stuff that only drops in some of those. And that's kind of exciting, I think. Towers are also much better. So we might have like a screenshot here. But now basically towers are going to be much rarer, and there's going to be much more juice behind each tower basically. So we have maybe an example here somewhere where you can now put multiple tablets into a single tower. So that's kind of interesting. And if you do like a higher tier tower, I think, then here you get like more slots. And then also it affects a lot more maps. So here it says 15 range in maps contain rituals. And we've also seen like even higher numbers than that. So basically there's like one tower every once in a while, and you like giga juice everything around it. And you don't have to like go around from tower to tower and then, you know, try to overlap like 4 different towers at once and then try to juice your maps that way. So I think that's like a huge upgrade. This was a big complaint from many players, and it's going to be much more fun as well. Yeah, other than that, there's also like interesting stuff like unique tablets now. So they showed this briefly during the presentation. For example, there's one that you get from Expedition, I believe, where it allows you to go to any map in Radius, so you can like not even run the connections, but you can like jump over the sea, or you can jump over a mountain range and stuff like that as well. So pretty cool stuff. So this was also like a much requested feature in some way, and they've done that now. Now it depends a bit on like how rare are these things, but it might actually help you out once in a while. Also, you can have now more portals. So it's not like only one portal and you're out, but if you run lower rarity maps, then you will have more portals. So basically, if you are kind of struggling and you're not really sure if you can like tackle the map or something, then you can just like not super juice it. And basically, the more you juice it, the harder it gets. Now, there is like some concern that they talked about with how many portals they have to just take out loot from the map, because if you have only one portal at the end, then you can't like loot a lot of stuff, for example. So they want to try to find a workaround here, but overall it means stuff is going to become a bit easier, especially on the entry level. So, you know, for like the lower end builds and lower end players and so on, you're gonna have more portals, you can actually reattempt the map and, you know, kind of continue where you died, and that's kind of cool, I think. Then we talked about this here, and this new unique maps are coming. So for example, one of these like essence maps here, this is like a unique map, and there's a bunch of other stuff where you get like these extra runes and so on. So it's interesting stuff coming. Towers in general are also upgraded with mechanics now, and they have bosses. They've already previewed this a little while ago, so it's not like a really big news feature here. And this is also quite interesting. So they want people to try out pinnacle content a lot more. So they actually removed the XP penalty. You can now just go in at any time whenever you have like your Arbiter ready, or you have your King in the Mist ready or something like that, and you can attempt it. They also reduced the difficulty of the T0 pinnacle bosses to half, but they scale up to the same that they were before at tier 4, but they also now drop all of the items at tier 0. So without upgrading the bosses and without having extra Atlas points, they now still give you all the items, but there's like a different chance for each of them. So the bigger items are going to be more rare at the, you know, the start, and then they're going to like scale up basically. But overall, this allows you to kind of like look forward to any of those pinnacle encounters, and they want to try to get people to do them more often. Another new thing, besides the Asmarius that I talked about, I think they're called Asmarian Wisps actually, is the new Rouge Exiles. Those look really cool actually. So compared to PoE 1, where they're kind of like whatever, they added 6 Rouge Exiles, so not that many. There's like one of the existing classes basically. And here's like a counter example. They showed us off a little bit, but the cool thing about them is they actually really behave like a player, and they jump around, and they're like much smarter than the typical monster. So it's a bit of like a special fight, and probably kind of tanky as well. But also when you kill one of them, it will drop the items that Exile has equipped. So they have like mods, like, you know, it wears this unique item and it wears that unique item. And when you actually successfully kill them, you will get those items. So potentially the Rouge Exile can be really beefy and really crazy. But on the other hand, you can also get super juicy rewards. So that sounds very fun, and I'm looking forward to that. There's like some additional stuff in the Q&A. I talked about this here. For example, Temporal is also getting nerfed. Double heralds and so on. Crossbows are getting a buff. I think that's probably a pretty good move here. They did seem a bit under-tuned here, at least with most builds from what I've seen. Tons of crash fixes. They did talk about some pretty funny stuff there with how they're trying to fix some of them. But overall, they are pretty confident that the stability is much improved. Also, the servers seem to be much better. They've said that they've done some backend work here. So we expect like a much smoother launch than on the original early access launch. And yeah, quality of life features are coming later. They did talk about an Atlas bookmark. So when you have, you know, something you want to save, like a citadel in a distance or something, you can do that. And stash affinities, for example, for runes are coming at some point, but not with the launch of the patch directly here. Now, some stuff that did not address here, at least specifically, with any kind of detail, is item rarity. So this was a massive topic and potentially problem, at least that we encountered. At least the economy, especially on softcore, was like really wild with, you know, divines being like crazy expensive and so on. So anyone who's traded a bunch has noticed this. We're not sure if anything changes there right now. Druid, we also don't know when that's coming. They didn't really talk about it, all the new acts. Also, as far as I know, they did not talk about like making pinnacle encounters more accessible, like you get actually more chances of fighting King in the Mist, for example, or something. This is like a huge problem where right now you basically need to kill King in the Mist twice to then actually kind of farm King in the Mists. So you have to like struggle your way through this, like, you know, starting scenario where you don't have any Atlas points, and then eventually kind of picks up the pace. But it's really like hard to get there basically. But yeah, we'll see what happens. Maybe they like overall increase the spawn rates a bit or so, and they might have done some tweaks, but we don't know. And yeah, last Epoch, they didn't really talk about that either. But yeah, this is what we got here for the summary. As I said, you can go check this out here. So there was also like the live stream that I will also link down in the description. Otherwise, here there's like the overview a little bit with some of the new stuff. Personally, I'm very excited for this. It looks very cool. And well, we have at least 2 weeks or so to blast Path of Exile before last Epoch comes out, which I'm also going to be blasting. So you can expect a lot of videos. I'm going to go through, for example, the new classes, the new skills. I'm going to try to cook a bunch of stuff, and we'll see where we end up. So there's going to be like a big 2 weeks Path of Exile blast into last Epoch blast, and then yeah, we'll see. At some point I'm going to go back to PoE as well. And overall, 0.2, really big win in my book here. So we'll see how it plays out, but the preview looks amazing.